This is an extraordinary show. A lot of stuff's going to happen today, and I'm glad you're here. Number one, well, let's talk about our guest co-host today. Not in the studio, but with us, joining us from his palatial mansion in San Francisco, California, I believe. Rodney Mueller is an executive coach, a business advisor to venture-backed startups. If you don't have venture capital backing, don't even bother contacting him. He's been coaching individuals and training groups to create a more fulfilling life since 2008, which means next year will be his 10th year as a full-time professional coach. Former president of the St. Louis chapter of the International Coach Federation, a leader at Accomplishment Coaching. His coaching practice, check this out, this is my favorite part of his bio, of his story, of his life. A drill sergeant in the Army. That's right, a non-commissioned officer in the Army, the United States Army, currently in the Army Reserves, and the founder of Absent Father podcast, available on iTunes or wherever fine podcasts are available. We're delighted to welcome Rodney to our microphone. Hello, sir.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thanks for being had, as we like to say. Tell us one good thing about being in the Army or the Army Reserves.
Well, there's two places that I learned about leadership. One is Accomplishment Coaching, but the first one was the Army. And what most people don't know about the Army is that it is an extraordinary culture of leadership. It's not the dictatorial perception that I think most people have.
Great. What's something, if you could give to all leaders that you learned in the Army, that you would just like wave your magic wand and give to all leaders everywhere?
The coolest thing about Army leadership is that the focus is 100% responsibility. So taking, as an Army leader, you take 24/7 responsibility in a holistic way, whereas maybe in a typical way you think about it just in the terms of, what is the work output, but really thinking about the whole human being and being responsible as a leader for that.
That's great. So wave your magic wand and give everybody full ownership, full responsibility, being 100% them and 0% whatever the other person is, the circumstances, the dog ate it, whatever.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Sounds like a great place to come from as a coach. You used to be in St. Louis. What's something you notice about moving to the left coast, the great wilds of the San Francisco Bay Area?
Well, for what I pay for my 2-bedroom house, I would have a palatial mansion in St. Louis. That's the first thing I noticed.
True.
But the thing I love the most about the Bay Area in particular, obviously famous for being next to Silicon Valley, is that the sense of possibility here and the sense of abundance is just out of this world. What people are working on, what people think is possible is really special.
It's interesting. There's a movement, you're perhaps aware of it from, places like Fast Company and Wired Magazine just had spreads on it, that, there's some pull for people to move away from Silicon Valley because it's, overloaded, too much traffic, too many VCs, too much of everything. Any sense of that? Any sense that people are moving away to find greener pastures elsewhere, or is it still sort of a mecca?
Well, it's still definitely a mecca because all the talent is here, all the resources are here, and like you said, the venture companies are here. But I do notice that, and Tim Ferriss, one of my favorite thought leaders, just moved away from the Bay Area and wrote a big article about this, and you can find it on Reddit and Tim Ferriss. But he talked about how 15% of the people, and this is his words, 15% of the people are the people that we're talking about, really visionary, truly talented, and that a lot of the other people are just chasing a dream and really not serious or that high level of talent that people associate with Silicon Valley. So I think it's somewhere in the middle. I think that a lot of people are working very hard here and maybe not living great lives. And that is a challenge. That is a challenge here.
And what a great opportunity for a coach, yeah.
Absolutely.
And coach is. I imagine it's kind of like the golden age of Hollywood, where all the starlet wannabes sort of move to Hollywood to be discovered as they're a waiter, somewhere.
Yeah. Everybody has a startup here. It's
I hate,
hilarious.
I hate to break this up, but we need to talk about the International Coach Federation. I know that you are a member, you enjoy a credential, and one of the things that the International Coach Federation does is it provides instant credibility for its members, like you and me, and it does that through credentialing, sure, and giving people the MCC, PCC, and ACC designations once we've earned it. But I'm just delighted to be in our fourth, almost our fifth year of media partnership with the International Coach Federation, and it gives us an opportunity to support the fine people that work in the organization, the world's largest organization of professionally trained coaches. Rodney, give you an opportunity here to shout out to the ICF. You're a former president, as am I, of your local chapter. You are somebody who went and got your credential and supports the International Coach Federation. What's something that maybe most people wouldn't think of first when it comes to the ICF that you love about them or that you've enjoyed or gotten value from?
Well, I think there's two quick things. One is participating as an active board member in the St. Louis ICF chapter, as well as the Bay Area ICF chapter. I, like most coaches, I'm like, I don't have the time. There's a meeting at this, sometime in the evening. But what I got was extraordinary collaboration and community with other coaches that not only was enriching to my personal and professional development, but really meant actual business opportunities as a coach. They're connected to networks that I wasn't, and it really fast forwarded my business. Within a few years, I was working in organizations that I would never have been in had I not been a part of the ICF.
Great. One of my favorite things is the amount of information available on the website. If you go to coachfederation.org, you'll find not only a storehouse of research. I love that their director of research is also their director of education. So they take what they find in research and immediately make it available to us as educational opportunities, both in regional things or just free online opportunities to get your CCEUs or to find out more about what's happening in coaching. The ICF is truly a value in our profession. They're committed to developing the profession, committed to developing the people in it, and lots of ongoing opportunities for training and development, both local and in person as well as on the web. Basically, if you haven't been to an ICF chapter meeting, we want you to go. And if you haven't been to their website, coachfederation.org, or even if you have and you just got a couple of minutes, go there now and check out the vast amount of free information and resources there. And then do what we did and become a member and support the International Coach Federation and go find your local meeting. If there's meetings globally, and as you may know, we have people here once every quarter representing the ICF. We just had their Director of Research and Education, but in the past we've had their Executive Director and their Executive in charge of membership and in charge of the chapters and lots of things. So check out those interviews, but also go immediately to coachfederation.org, and we thank them for their support. All right. Well, Rodney, you're doing a great job. Any questions, any concerns today?
No.
I'm excited about our first guest. Ora, now we're gonna have to talk to Ora about how to pronounce the last name here, but Ora, we come to know Ora through the work. The Glass Elevator is a book, a guide to leadership presence for women on the rise. But lately, Ora's worked on Career Blast, a micro-learning video platform for busy, ambitious professionals to fuel their careers. You can find out more by going to the website Ora, O-R-A, coaching.com. Please welcome to our microphones Ora, how do we say your last name?
You know what? Let's avoid it. I like to be like Oprah and just go with my first name.
There aren't that many Auras.
Difficult.
Yeah. And
let's go with Ora.
Do people sometimes say you have a great aura?
Yes,
yeah,
they do.
That's the only
and
thing.
I hope I do.
Right. Rodney, what would you like to know from Ms. Ora?
For the record, I would pronounce it Shtull, but we'll leave it there. Well,
She's not telling you. Yeah.
I'd love to know a little bit about, your thoughts on leadership presence and what are the critical elements of leadership presence as you see it.
Yeah, absolutely. As you know, and probably all our listeners know, people throw around words like executive presence and leadership presence, and they don't always define it. And I set out to really understand what makes professionals successful. And having worked with both men and women in lots of great companies for over 20 years, I kind of figured out what makes them successful, and that's how I came to my own definition of leadership presence. So leadership presence is what makes a leader successful. It has three main components. It's your ability to engage, connect, and influence. And each of those three elements has three specific behaviors. So I can go through them super quickly, but you can also see them clearly in a model that I built. It's on oracoaching.com. When we talk about engaging, that's how we show up nonverbally. I call that executive presence. It's how we communicate with impact. It's how we listen to learn. When we talk about connecting, it's obviously about building powerful relationships both inside the company and outside the company. How do you optimize individuals? How do you optimize the whole team's performance? And then finally, when we talk about influence, that's about your ability to champion an idea in your organization or company or environment all the way to the top. It's about building what I call a personal brand in the workplace and in the marketplace. And it's also about handling those sticky, messy transitions that come up all the time.
What's an example of that?
Transitions. Well, in terms of transitions, you can have the individual personal ones or you can have the organizational ones. So an individual transition could be, hey, I was just promoted. I used to have one job, and now it feels like I have 10 jobs. Or organizationally, there could be change in the workplace. You could have just acquired a company, and the workplace is going through the integration of two cultures. I've seen that a lot. You could have been brought in an acquisition of a company. That's certainly an organizational challenge. It's chaos. It's messy. And to be successful, you have to maneuver through those difficult times, not only those easy times.
I appreciate so much the distinction that you made. I'm wondering, is there a difference between executive presence and leadership presence?
According to my definition, there is. Leadership presence is much more all-encompassing and comprehensive, so it includes the 9 must-have behaviors that you can see in my model. I view executive presence more as how we show up non-verbally.
Such as just
when we talk about
sense of confidence?
Non-verbally, that's visually, that's vocally, right? You know, there are certain people that come into the room and you go, that person is making, his or her mark. I'm noticing that person before that person even speaks verbally. What is it that leader does when that leader enters the room? There are things that are going on both vocally, I think before I said verbally, I meant to say vocally and visually, which are interesting and make a difference.
Well, I'm interested in this, and forgive me for a left turn. I promise to get back to the main river in just a moment. But one of the things that we talk about as an ICF core competency, and I know you're an executive coach and have been for years, making a huge difference in lots of big-name organizations and with lots of high-level executives. What do you consider to be the difference in coaching presence as opposed to executive or leadership presence, as you've sort of detailed them here?
What is? I want to just make sure I fully understand your question. What is coaching presence?
Right. So there's a core competency that talks about coaching presence, and it's one of those things that's sort of always been, in my mind at least, sort of vaguely described. Do you know what I mean? Like you either have a coaching presence or you don't. And I'm interested in comparing that to a leadership and executive presence. Does that make sense?
The way I think about coaching presence, and by the way, both coaches and professionals can have coaching presence. Is how we listen to others.
Rodney, she said how we listen to others.
Gotcha.
Yeah, thanks. Go ahead, Ora.
Yeah.
Just playing.
But fundamentally, our ongoing success comes not from how we speak, not how from we tell, but how we support others. And the first step in supporting others is listening to them. And as a coach, we break that down into fundamental skills that help us. We can also help the leaders or professionals we support in breaking down listening into fundamental scientific pieces so they can become better coaching leaders in the workplace. Everyone kind of has this notion, I need to listen more, right? But listening, zipping up your mouth at a 2-hour meeting is virtually impossible. So I say that there are 3 ways to talk while you listen, and that is coaching presence. So one way, of course, is just to ask questions, to ask probing questions, like, tell me more, what else? Another way is to, of course, paraphrase. It's not simply echoing back to make someone feel heard. It's also checking your clarity and encouraging the others to elaborate. Like, even the class, do I hear you right? You believe that, ICF is essential for your career success as a coach. And I pause and you're saying, yeah, but it's more than that. And then you'll elaborate. So nice. The second way we talk is by paraphrasing. And the third way we can have coaching presence or talk while we listen is by empathizing. There's a lot of emotion in the workplace. No one checks emotions at the door. Work is very, very personal, very emotional. So in those meetings with other people, how can we sense what the other person is feeling? How can we empathize? Maybe it would sound like, wow, this is a really serious issue to you. Or, wow, you sound very annoyed or disturbed or upset by what's going on. Pause to listen and to go deeper with the person you're talking to.
Beautiful. I love what you're saying, Laura. And, one of the things that I'm curious about is, oftentimes when you're working with a leader, especially the ones that are on the way to an executive level, I'm curious about the differentiation you have there too, but how do you convince or talk a leader into working on some of these softer skills that are absolutely part of the executive presence, but that they may not think that that's what they need to do? They may think that it's about, how do I get my people to do stuff, or, communicate better, whatever the hard skills they think it is. And how do you get them to address the underlying elements that contribute to executive presence or leader presence?
Right. So self-awareness is definitely, step number one in terms of change. You're not going to change anything unless you have some kind of awareness of what you are, both in terms of huge strength and in terms of opportunities to develop. So in terms of my own process in the workplace, I always do an interview-based 360. So I go into the workplace and I'll talk to about a dozen people in my client's realm. I'll talk to seniors and peers and direct reports and any other stakeholders that can reflect intelligently on my client. And I'll probe deeply myself. I'll say, tell me about where my client is super effective. Tell me where they could be more effective. If you were going to choose just one thing that would make the biggest positive difference in my client's leadership or management, what one thing would you pick? So I'll probe deeply, and I'll pull all that data together. So I have a really good picture, a 360-degree picture of what the workplace is saying about my client, both in terms of what they cherish and what they want to see change. Then I'll learn a lot from my client. Now, if we just work on what the workplace is interested in, and it means nothing to my client, we're going to get nowhere. And if we just work on something important to my client that's not relevant to the workplace, we're going to get nowhere, right? So my job as a coach is to find that sweet spot, that point of intersection between what the company is saying and what's in my client's gut. And once we together find that sweet spot, we can articulate the coaching goal. And the coaching goal will be about leadership presence. It will be about how we communicate, how we connect, how we contribute at a higher, more strategic level in the company.
I think that's a really great, an excellent point, like that part about finding the sweet spot. And I think that certainly for newer coaches or coaches looking to get into the organizational environment, it sounds like that particular skill is really important, which I imagine you would say comes from practice.
Yeah, that step number one, goal articulation, is hugely important. And I'd say to the newer coaches, make sure you define measures of success up front. How will your client feel? What will your client be doing differently? How will your client be perceived? And, just like a little bit of word of caution, it's not only good for coaching, but you might be called on it, by HR or some kind of leader at the end when they're looking over your progress with the client. I remember way back years ago, I was meeting at the close of engagement with an HR leader, and the HR leader said, I heard the client still speaks too quickly. Nothing's changed. And I calmly said, let's look back over the goal and the measures of success we defined 6 months ago and check in on those things. And of course, lo and behold, speaking quickly had nothing to do with the coaching engagement. So it's very, very, not only for success and for positive outcome and transformation, it's important to articulate the goals and the measures of success very, very carefully, but it's also important for business.
There's so much gold here for coaches, and I know that some of our listeners are up-and-coming executive coaches or people who look up to you. You've done and are a lot of what people want: a successful executive coach, an author, and a speaker. Or what advice do you have for coaches that are either not quite where you are, or aspire to be where you are and work with the level of executives with whom you work?
All right. So the first thing I want to just say is that we're living in a very crowded space, we coaches, right now. Everyone is suddenly a coach, or everyone wants to be a coach.
Everyone and their dog and cat.
And his dog and his cat, and his brother and his sister, and also the person who's gainfully employed is planning on retiring and becoming a coach, right? So there are a lot of coaches in the marketplace. So it's essential that you differentiate yourself in some way. You need to find your niche. Now, you may not know it today, so don't panic, right? Like, we're not sure what it is today, but as you begin to coach, even if you're doing it pro bono, with your friends, begin to take note of what do you do that's a little bit different than everyone else. How do you do your coaching uniquely? Or are you working with a certain niche of people more successfully than others? Are you drawn to the millennial population? Are you drawn to the second career population? Are you drawn to people of a certain psychographic, maybe traditional workers who want to leave their careers and do something, funky or groovy? So watch carefully and find your niche. Because it's really, unless you have the marketing budget of a Pepsi-Cola or a Coca-Cola, it's going to be very hard to market yourself to the entire world. It's so much easier to market yourself to your small niche that you understand and that you produce phenomenal results with.
Great. What's the biggest mistake people are making? Is it not differentiating themselves, or is there something bigger?
Well, I think that's one of the biggest. I actually have I've created a little PDF if any of our listeners want, as my little gift, 9 mistakes coaches make, and 9 tips to help you overcome them. So at the end of the call, we'll make sure that everyone can get access to that. So I actually think there are 9 mistakes that coaches make. And yeah, one of the real biggies is that they don't niche. It's, I meet coaches, they say, what do you do? Oh, I consult, I work with, Christian-based youth, and I work with 30-somethings, and I also work with millennials, and I'm trying to get into the corporate space, and, no one's going to remember you if that's your lead-in, right? So you have to be very clear about who you serve and how you do it uniquely. So that's one thing. I think because everyone's interested in business development, I'll say a word also about marketing here. I think that's, a perpetually interesting theme to coaches. I just want to say something. While everyone, should have a website is not marketing. I'd like to just get that out there. It's a really crowded, noisy world out there, and it takes more than just a website to get your valuable message heard. Now, a website is a helpful tool. It's kind of like a very big business card, right? It's kind of like a storefront, but you have to get people in there. So it has to be only one element of how you communicate with your target market. So in thinking about communicating, how do you like to communicate? Some people love to speak to audiences. Some don't. Some like to do podcasts like you're doing. Some people like to publish blogs or articles. I love to do video. Some people are social media mavens. Find the way that you want to communicate in order to market the value you bring to your audience.
Beautiful. Our time has flown by, and we're down to our last minute. I know you mentioned that you wanted people to get this 9, I want to say it right, 9
career-killing mistake coaches make, and 9 tips to correct them.
How do we get there?
Okay, so this is a new techie way to do it. You're going to text me, and here's my number. The text the number is 601-990-2096. I will repeat that, 601-990-2096. And you're going to text me just one word, and the word you're going to text me is coach. We all know how to spell that.
Yes.
Text me the word coach, and then you'll get some instructions that come up on your phone, and you just follow the questions, and you will get this ebook, 9 Career-Killing Mistakes Coaches Make and 9 Tips to Correct Them, immediately delivered to your personal inbox.
Perfect. And thank you so much for that. What a delightful gift. All right. With 10 seconds left in our time together, what would you like to leave our listeners with today? If you could say something to 50,000 coaches, what would you have us leave with today?
All right, so I'll make it a several sentence close. First, to be successful, do darn good work. Show results, and you will be referred.
That's great. I know that you have more, and it's so great to talk to you. You can find out more about Aura by going to auracoaching.com. Find out all about her book, The Executive Coaching, and where she's going to be speaking next. In addition, if you want to talk more to Rodney, well, stay with us. He'll be with us. But you can also go to stlcoaching.com. That's stlcoaching.com. Well, with Rodney Miller,
tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McAuliffe brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcAuliffe.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McAuliffe. ChristopherMcAuliffe.com.
Are you seeking to change your career to something that is both fulfilling and challenging? Do you want to help people reach their full potential and strive to achieve their dreams? Would you like to inspire those around you and help create a better world? If you're serious about a career change or just want to explore the craft of personal coaching, contact Accomplishment Coaching. With locations across the country in Washington, D.C., Seattle, Chicago, New York City, and San Diego, Accomplishment Coaching is the leading institution in personal coaching. Our staff carefully monitors the entire program, live during the training process, and have met the strict standards of ICF International to achieve accreditation. Through a focus on quality instruction rather than endless modules of training, Accomplishment Coaching will guide you from your very first step all the way to becoming one of the finest coaches in the world. Visit accomplishmentcoaching.com to learn more. Accomplishment Coaching, where coaches lead and leaders coach.
Christopher McAuliffe is your source for the latest in the world of personal coaching. Whether it be speaking with such luminaries as Deepak Chopra or getting the newest techniques and innovation, the coaching show is always on the cutting edge of what's happening now.
Gotham Books presents Marriage Rules by Harriet Lerner. The book Martha Beck calls required reading for anyone hoping to interact successfully with any other human, not just for those in romantic relationships. Get your copy wherever books and ebooks are sold, and visit harrietlerner.com to learn how to change your marriage today.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the Coaches Training Program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Talk to me. WSRadio.com.
Accomplishment Coaching is proud to present the following fine programming. Accomplishment Coaching, where coaches lead and leaders coach. AccomplishmentCoaching.com.
Welcome back to the Coaching Show with your host, Master Certified Coach
Christopher McAuliffe.
Well, thank you, Dick Warren, and I am delighted to have as our guest co-host this week, Rodney Mueller. Rodney is an executive coach working with venture-backed startups and executives. He's been coaching for almost 10 years, just coming up on 10 years, as well as the former president of the St. Louis chapter of the International Coach Federation, a leader at Accomplishment Coaching, and formerly, I think maybe still in the Army Reserve, but formerly a drill sergeant in the United States Army, and founder of the Absent Father podcast on iTunes. Rodney, let's talk about that Absent Father podcast. What's it about? It sounds sad.
It's not meant to be sad, although I've gotten that experience, and I'm kind of a straightforward Midwest title giver, so I had to call it Absent Father Podcast. But what it's about really is...
You know, you're talking to a guy who calls his podcast The Coaching Show, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, go.
Midwestern sensibilities. But what it's about is, I grew up with an absent father, didn't meet my father or see a picture until I was 13, and never really had a relationship. And as I've gotten further into my work as a coach, I've realized that there's a lot of people that struggle with having an absent or distant father, and that could be emotionally distant, alcoholic, workaholic, etc. And the show is really about just uncovering the traits and some of the...
I'm sorry, there's some cutting out. Will you repeat what you just said?
Again, so brilliant.
I'm so sorry. We're experiencing
essentially
technical difficulties. I need you to say it one more time. I'm assured that everything is back plugged in properly now. I'm kidding. It's just a line problem. But will you say it again?
Yes. So, voice over IP. Absent Father podcast is really about the diving into the impacts of growing up with an absent or distant father, but also not just the impacts, but also some of the superhero qualities that we develop as a result of that. So
that's awesome. And we can find that on iTunes or wherever fine podcasts are available. I'm going to try and strong arm you later to make it available through Accomplishment Media as well.
Awesome.
Thanks for doing that important work. Speaking of important work, man, I want you to know that Accomplishment Coaching, if you're somebody who appreciates the finest things, if you're looking for like the cheapest, or if you're fine like shopping where everybody else shops, that's fine. There's a lot of great coach training programs out there for people who are looking for the cheapest or the quickest or the diploma mill route. But if you're really somebody who wants to dig in and get your training at the highest level, if you're somebody who appreciates the Harvard, the Oxford, the Columbias, the Stanfords in the world, and those are the right places for you, check out Accomplishment Coaching. Accomplishment Coaching has been designed from the very beginning to be the world's finest coach training program. Of course, they're ACTP. Of course, they're ICF accredited. Of course, they have more hours of training, more hours of in-person training. All their training is in person in small groups. It's a boutique coaching company. It's a coaching company that trains people at the highest level, and it's one program. It's not a series of modules. It's not like opt in to this, that, or the other thing. It's one program, a year long. Rodney, I know you do some work with Accomplishment Coaching. Is there something that for you sets apart Accomplishment Coaching from anyone else who's training coaches out there?
Well, I think the biggest differentiator is that when you complete the program, after 1 year of completing the program, it will accelerate your development and experience as a coach by 5 to 10 years. After only a few years out of the program, I was working with people that had 10 to 20 years experience and felt completely on par with them.
Mm-hmm. So not kidding around, the world's finest coach training program. You can find them. One of my favorite things is they invite you in to come and observe the training program. So you don't have to listen to a speech. You don't have to listen to a spiel. You can just go and observe the training program in process at certain days and times with an invitation. You can get that by going to accomplishmentcoaching.com. And the cities they are in are all across North America. San Diego, California, America's finest city. Seattle, Washington, the Emerald City, the Queen City, the Emerald City. It's one of those. Victoria, British Columbia, another gorgeous place. The Windy City, Chicago, the Big Apple, New York City, and of course our nation's capital where we need coaching now more than ever, Washington, D.C. Check it out, accomplishmentcoaching.com. All right, we have not enough time to talk to our next person, but it's going to be delicious. You're going to be so glad you're here. Andy Molinsky is a professor at Brandeis University's International Business School, but check it out, also has a joint appointment in the Department of Psychology. Here's his educational background. Although he's not boring an academic, he has a significant line of credentials: BA in International Affairs from Brown University, a little school called Brown, a master's degree in International Affairs from Columbia University, and then went and got his PhD in Organizational Behavior and MA in Psychology from a little place called Harvard University. I think that's in Massachusetts somewhere. Andy's work helps people develop the insights and courage necessary to act outside their personal and cultural comfort zones when doing important but challenging tasks in work and in life. His research and writing has been all over, from HBR to Inc. magazine, Psychology Today, the Financial Times, New York Times. He's won awards. His first book was 2013's Global Dexterity. Published by HBR Press, it received a silver medal for Best Business Book in International Business and Globalization. First book, award-winning, and has been used widely in organizations including Boeing, AIG, the Air Force Academy, sorry, not the Army, Rodney, and the Clinton.
He started in the Army.
And then his latest book is out this year, Reach, published with Penguin Random House, talking about living outside of one's comfort zone. We're delighted to welcome to our microphones the great, the powerful Andy Molinsky. Hello, sir. We are not hearing Andy, but I believe him to be here. Perhaps not. All right, Rodney. Pop quiz. We're gonna fill time here. What would you like to talk about, sir?
Well, it's interesting because as we were getting ready to bring Andy on, one of the things that I was thinking about, as he talks about culture, I was thinking about the leadership culture in the Army, and one of the things that I often tell organizations or people who are developing culture is, and that I really think about, is how did the Army create such a powerful culture? And I believe that their culture, the culture of leadership, is what makes them great. So I'm excited to talk to Andy about how culture is formed and how that gets created. But
right, I believe we've got him back with us. Andy Molinsky, are you with us, sir?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can. Thank you so much. The great, the powerful Dr. Andy Molinsky, I should say. We've given you an introduction that's worthy of you. You'll just have to take my word on that. But do you want to pick it up? Did you hear Rodney's question about culture and how organizations like the U.S. Army are able to form such a strong and enduring culture?
Yeah, no, I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry, but that does not surprise me. I imagine that the culture is a real asset for the military, because it's critical to, if people can use culture proactively, strategically, it can be a very powerful asset. And I imagine an organization like the military is very, very conscious of that and uses that to its advantage at multiple levels. Is my guess. I've never been in the military, but that's from afar. That would be my hunch.
Mm-hmm. We wanted to start with the global dexterity distinctions around culture, because one of your training is all in international business and international cultures. What do you think, if you could sort of give something to coaches working with people who are executives who have to deal with the different global cultures these days, what's the one thing that you think is lacking or most important that a coach can bring?
Yeah, I think that so I work a lot with people learning to adapt and adjust their behavior across cultures, from the United States outward, and then a lot of foreign professionals in the United States. I think that a lot of the material out there, which is quite useful, focuses on differences, cultural differences, how the Chinese are different than the Americans, how the Germans are different than the French, and so on and so forth. And that's really, that's key. That's obviously important to understand, where your tripwires will be, where the faux pas will be, and so on and so forth. But I think in fixating on differences, people and coaches and coachees often lose track of what I think the real challenges are and the real opportunities are, which are, number one, learning to adapt and adjust your behavior in light of these differences, which is often easier said than done. And then number two, finding points of similarity, because I think that's where you're going to be able to build the trust with clients and colleagues and so on, and then sort of create that relationship and be able to bridge cultures more successfully. So I think kind of the fixation on differences, while important, often obscures people from other really critical tasks.
Super clear. The book Global Dexterity won lots of awards. I mean, that's pretty amazing for your first book, right? And has been used around the world. What's the biggest takeaway that people are reporting from Global Dexterity? In other words, what's the secret sauce there?
I don't know. It's a good question what the secret sauce is, but I think that the key aspect of that book is that, crossing cultures isn't rocket science, right? It's not impossible. Anyone can really learn to do it, but it is a process. It is a strategy. And the focus of the book is on helping people adjust and adapt their behavior across cultures, but without losing themselves in the process. So it's sort of it's having their cake and eating it too. It's being effective and appropriate, and at the same time not losing themselves. It's funny because when I talk with executives about these topics, you often hear wildly different, very confident answers about what one should do when crossing cultures. There'll be some people who say and swear by, when in Rome, act like the Romans, right? I'm sure you've heard that before. And then you will also hear people say the complete opposite and say, you know what just works for me is just to be myself. And then they'll say, just be yourself and you'll be fine. And in my view, having done this for a long time, having taught, having consulted, having coached, having done original research on this topic, it's actually somewhere in between where the key is. It's actually being able to adapt and adjust and find a way to be yourself at the same time. And that's exactly what my book tries to help people to do.
I know that my co-host today, Rodney Mueller, wants to talk about your new book, Reach, and I imagine you do too, strategies to help you step outside your comfort zone, rise to the challenge, and build confidence. Clearly something we can all use these days. But it seems to me that I can't talk to somebody who's an expert, as you are, in global cultures and cultural competency and not address our current leadership and let's call it the slipping status of the United States, or the changing status of the United States on the global scene. Do you have a comment or something that you would like to see our leaders do to sort of address what seems like a certain tone deafness to other cultures in the world and some right here at home?
Wow. I would agree with
just an opportunity. Yeah.
Right. No, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I agree. I think that I do believe that I think it's in sort of when I was talking about similarities before. I think that what's really important at a political level and in an international political level is building relationships, with especially with our allies, but also across the board. And I just hope that the current administration, realizes the importance of that, both at the level of ambassadors, at the level of the presidency, and also at the level of the State Department. I think diplomacy is really important. Global Dexterity plays a key role in diplomacy, and I hope that some of the lack of investment in the State Department and in diplomacy is just a temporary thing, and that we're going to double back down on that and really try to kind of regain our footing and our reputation and the trust that we've had in the past, and sort of regain that in the world. So I don't know what else to say about that, but that's I think I probably share your point of view.
Well, true to your title, you showed some dexterity, some global dexterity in addressing the question. I imagine that you and I could sit down over a cuppa one day and talk about the intra-national politics and the different cultural divide that's happening here in America. But let's give Rodney an opportunity to talk about reach and stepping outside of our comfort zone, and we'll just keep that as a teaser for the future, okay?
All right, that sounds good.
Well, it's interesting because, part of the question I had about global dexterity and this idea of adapting your behavior without losing yourself in the process, which I love. The question that came up was how does confidence and stepping outside your comfort zone play into being in a culture that isn't yours and not losing yourself. So I'd love to hear if there's a connection between the new book Reach and Global Dexterity.
Nice bridge. Woo.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, in fact, part of the inspiration for my writing Reach was the feedback I got about Global Dexterity. I had thousands and thousands of people reading it, and I get emails and I'd get comments at talks in various places on LinkedIn and so on about how the book was useful for people who weren't even crossing cultures, or they weren't crossing the cultures I was originally intending when I wrote the book. Like they were crossing from being an engineer to being a salesperson, for instance. That's certainly a culture, right? Those are professional cultures. It wasn't the culture I was originally thinking, and I kept getting emails like this that the ideas in the book were helpful to people outside the realm of crossing national cultures. It then gave me this epiphany, which is very odd because it's almost like sometimes there are things right in front of your nose that you just kind of don't even notice. And that was the case here. I had been doing academic research for years with a colleague of mine at Harvard Business School on the challenges that professionals faced in all sorts of difficult situations. Like we were studying police officers evicting families from their homes. We were studying managers delivering bad news and performing layoffs. We were studying doctors, especially pediatric physicians, performing painful procedures on kids and delivering often negative or bad news to parents. And, it just struck me that, whoa, I've actually been studying people stepping outside their comfort zones. I didn't even realize it. And then that, plus the feedback I got from Global Dexterity, plus my own sort of reflection about my own life and how it's always been hard for me to step outside my comfort zone. All those things together really inspired me to do a whole new set of interviews and research, and that launched really the book Reach.
Beautiful.
That's really, really cool. And how would you, when you think about confidence, how do you define confidence?
I don't actually, I guess I don't really talk that much about confidence. I almost talk more about courage in the book, I would say, and in the context of stepping outside your comfort zone. I think it's, I see people taking action despite the fear and anxiety they experience, and to me, that's courage. It's not eliminating the fear and anxiety and worry. It's actually it's being able to take action in spite of that or in the face of that. I suppose confidence plays a role because confidence is something I think that develops over time. I don't think a lot of people, when stepping outside their comfort zone initially, whether it's public speaking or delivering bad news or for some people it's networking and pitching and promoting themselves, or being more assertive or speaking up at meetings, or these little everyday acts of courage. I think for many people in these situations, they don't feel very confident initially, but I think by taking the leap, realizing that it's not as what I hear often is after trying it, especially trying it with some of the tools that I mentioned, it's not as hard as they thought it was, and they're actually a little bit better at it than they thought they were. That then often inspires them to try it again, and I sort of feel like that's the engine of building confidence there on the back end, once you've actually been able to nudge yourself to take the leap. But I don't think entering it, many people in these situations that I focus on are feeling great confidence.
I love that definition, and you maybe have the greatest subtitles of all time in both of your books, and I love even the order that you put, because I think that's true. I think a lot of people think about confidence as this elusive thing that some people have and some people don't, but I love the way you frame it, that it actually starts with stepping outside your comfort zone and small acts of courage, and over time you feel confident, perhaps, just like maybe the first time you brushed your teeth you weren't so confident in it, but you gained it over time. I love that.
Absolutely. It's like, I have 2 kids. My kids are a little they're 11 and 13 now, so they're beyond learning to brush their teeth. But when you have well, actually, no, they're pretty competent at that. But no, when you have little kids, it's interesting. You can really see the process of building basic core skill building and confidence. And in psychology we call it self-efficacy, which is very similar to confidence, I think. So yeah, interesting.
One of the things I've got, and forgive me, this is going to be a little meta, but most of our listeners are coaches or in some sort of a position of coaching and providing leadership to another, right? And often the leadership is to have the person step outside their comfort zone or rise to some challenge, right? Where they come to us and, oh my gosh, this just happened. What do I do? And yet I would assert, Andy, and forgive me, this might be a little too complicated, is I would assert that many of us as coaches or consultants, perhaps in your field, or professors in your field, are actually in our comfort zone when we're talking to people who are, considering getting outside of theirs. Is there something that we can do to sort of get more, challenge ourselves more, or get more outside of our, usual normal thing that we say to people who are about to face something they've never faced before?
It's a good question. I think empathy is the key there. And, that comes, I guess, from from really being able to step into the shoes of someone that you're trying to help and coach and mentor. And, I imagine that you're probably not going to want to necessarily be I think it's a good thing to feel like you're in your comfort zone when you're helping someone in that situation, because that you'll probably be able to be more effective and successful. But that doesn't mean that you can't, being in your comfort zone. I don't think necessarily means that you're lying back on the hammock sipping a drink and zoning out or something. I think you can be fully engaged, empathic, having sort of on the tip of your tongue, memory-wise, a similar experience you've had, so you can really get the fear and discomfort someone else is experiencing, and then to be able to bring that empathy to make a connection with someone that you're coaching, and maybe then sharing some strategies or suggesting some strategies and so on. And there you're building the trust and the relationship. And so I don't think you'd be out. I don't think you'd want to be outside your comfort zone in that case. But I do think it's good to be outside your comfort zone in other areas and times in your life to be able to really understand what your clients are struggling with, at least at an emotional level. I mean, I'm curious from your perspective, does that ring true?
Yeah, I think that ongoing training and development, ongoing challenges. I hate doing other people's training programs, but it's important that I do it, right? Even getting 360s, I hate that feedback. So right. I think that anything that challenges us has got to, get us back in that mindset of where we're putting our clients on a daily basis, right? I love talking to you, and I love your work. The books Global Dexterity and Reach are worth your time and investment. Andy, there's a lot of ways for people to find out about you, and then I want to give you sort of our last minute just to give us a parting thought. Ways to reach Andy Molinsky are to go to andymolinsky.com. He's also on Twitter as Andy Molinsky, on Facebook as Molinsky Andy, and you can find him on LinkedIn. Andy, what about it? I got about half a minute left. What would you have 50,000 coaches take with us today?
I think it's really a great thing that you're doing, helping people step outside their comfort zone. And I just want to reiterate that it's not as you all I think know, it's not rocket science to step outside your comfort zone, but it's also it's sort of a little bit harder than the memes that you see on the internet where people are jumping off cliffs and saying just take a leap, and nothing ever good happened inside your comfort zone. There is strategy involved. There is courage that's required. There is a system, actually, that I talk about in my book, for example, for understanding what people's sort of emotional roadblocks are and so on and so forth. But it's also not rocket science. So I think having that sort of middle range perspective is really important, just even in your own life, thinking about your own situations outside your comfort zone, and especially if you're privileged with the opportunity to help people to step outside theirs.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Andy Molinsky. Find him at andymolinsky.com. Get the book Reach immediately. And Rodney, thank you so much. What a great co-host you've been today. You can find out more about Rodney Mueller and his work by going to stlcoaching.com. That's another edition of the Coaching Show. I thank you, dear listener, and we will talk to you.
Nowadays, internet devices are an integral part of your home. Everyone in your family has a smartphone, tablet, or a computer. Life is easier knowing that all your devices are secured and your family can surf the internet carefree. ESET Multi-Device Security Pack does just that. One license for all your devices. With ESET, it's simple to stay protected and save money. Enjoy safer technology with ESET Multi-Device Security Pack at ESET.com. That's ESET.com.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the Coaches Training Program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Hi, Scale listener. This is David Finkel, co-host with Jeff Hoffman of Scale Your Business. I wanted to let you know that our newest book, Scale, was just released, and to encourage you to get your copy. The book will give you 7 proven principles to grow your business and get your life back. Scale will help you work less by getting your business to produce more. Get your copy online or at your local bookseller. For more information, visit us online at scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com.
Cybersecurity is the fastest growing job sector. The San Diego Mayor's Cyber Cup encourages kids to consider computer security as an interesting course of study and a valuable career path. Securing Our eCity helps lead this youth competition to create interest and awareness among students and their schools. The San Diego Mayor's Cyber Cup. Learn more at securingourecity.org or call 619-630-2444.
Do you love wine, but it doesn't love you back in the morning? Then it's time to try Alcotox, the ultimate hangover cure. Alcotox is a dietary supplement that reduces the harmful side effects of alcohol, and it benefits all alcohol consumers, not just those who occasionally overindulge. So now, for less than the cost of a drink, you can wake up hangover-free. To learn more, go to vinvillage.com and let Alcotox make hangovers a thing of the past.
You may have heard me brag about Progressive Medical Center and just how much they've helped me with my health. And Dr. Goli, one thing that you've helped so many people with is migraines.
Unfortunately, there are millions and millions of Americans who are suffering with migraines and headaches, and they're debilitating because it affects the quality of their life, and they cannot function properly. At Progressive, we get the root cause because we understand that migraines could be caused by nutritional deficiencies, hormonal imbalances, believe it or not, delayed food sensitivities. And once we determine what the real reason is,